Welcome again to our program. I'm Harry Greenberger. I'm president of the New Orleans Secular Humanist Association and host of this show. We have a very interesting subject tonight, which really comes about because of the recent terrible situation at the Virginia Institute, where there was a massacre of many people, and that brought about new discussions around the country regarding gun control. We're going to discuss that subject, but just to say up front that it will not be regarding none of us are lawyers, so it's not going to be regarding the legality or constitutionality. We're more interested in the societal implications of gun control. But just to get the legality out of the way, it does come about because of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, which reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Now, an explanation of that very short article, which I got out of the internet, and with which I agree, reads like this. The original intent and purpose of the Second Amendment was to preserve and guarantee, not to grant, the pre-existing right of individuals to keep and bear arms. Although the amendment emphasizes the need for a militia, membership in any militia, let alone a well-regulated one, was not intended to serve as a prerequisite for exercising the right to keep arms. It says here, there is no contrary evidence from the writings of the Founding Fathers, early American legal commentators, or pre-20th century Supreme Court decisions indicating that the Second Amendment was intended to apply solely to active militia members. So with that out of the way, let me introduce the folks who are going to be discussing this subject today. And we have at the end of the table Ned Hefner, and I'm really happy to say that today we have two young folks who've never been on our show before, and we appreciate their willingness and desire to be here with us today. Ned Hefner says, "I've never fired a gun in my life, have never owned one, despite working as a security officer at a federally subsidized apartment complex." And he says, anyway, you need to know, if you want a pro-gun humanist on your show, I'm willing to appear in that capacity. And then next to him is Rhyne Putman. He's only 23 years old, a student at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, majoring in biblical languages, hoping to pursue a PhD in historical theology. And Rhyne indicated to me that he strongly favors gun control. And then we have a veteran of our show, Lanny Goldfinch. And I don't know what position he's going to take, but it will no doubt be very interesting. So what I want to do is just to let any one of you who would like to introduce your position on, and it really isn't, I think, a matter of gun control. It's a matter of, do we need or want more than we have, less than we have, or whether what we have is an appropriate amount. So, Ned, you want to get us started?
As Harry said, I don't own a gun. I don't have any close gun-owning family members, but I take tremendous comfort in being about this close to owning a gun at any time. I feel that it's a crucial part of my dignity and my social identity as an American to be able to take self-defense into my own hands as necessary, not to wait for anyone to take care of issues for me. And also as a humanist, I feel it's necessary to see past any potential emotional weight that this issue has taken on with the recent tragedy and look at it objectively, that the tragedy in question at Vatech was a statistical anomaly, and that given the nature of the person who did the shooting, it probably could have been lessened, but not at all prevented by tighter gun regulations.
All right. Well, so that's your basically you would say that that you would like to see fewer gun regulations than we have, or are you satisfied with what exists now?
As long as I just have to put my money on the counter, I'm fine. Anything beyond that?
All right.
So
well,
for most
later
states,
on,
it would be fewer.
Later on, we're going to get into talking about different types of firearms, and you may, want to segregate some as acceptable and some as not. Rhyne, you're on another side of this issue. Where do you stand?
Well, I advocate gun restriction, particularly at the retail level, not necessarily at the manufacturer's fault, but I think the week's events at Virginia Tech last week showed that at the governmental level there were some miscommunications that put a gun in this Cho's hands, and I think that had the proper laws been in place, some of that stuff could have been prevented as far as him being able to purchase a gun. I think Ned has a point, though, that we have an emotional instinct sometimes to purchase guns. I think we live in a culture of fear. I think a lot of that fear is what drives the gun market, self-defense, so on and so forth. So I do advocate that we should limit whose hands have guns.
Okay, well, Lanny, jump right in.
My observation is that this is a problem that we in the United States deal with sometimes without getting outside the picture of our own culture. This society is very much a gun culture. Our country is very much a gun culture. If you go to the movies, you see a lot of violence. I grew up watching westerns where, and it's whether these things were historically true or not. Probably a lot of times they weren't historically true. But the gun was the authority, and the gun was the one that the bad guys had guns, the good guys had guns. Now the advantage was that the good guys were better shots. Unfortunately, today that seems to have flipped a little bit. Number one. And I doubt seriously that changing the gun control legalistic side of this would have the kind of impact on our culture that some people might think. Because if you step back, it just doesn't follow to me. We can make laws against things that are bad, and they still continue to be. Now, maybe they wouldn't be quite as many if the Chos of the world could had more trouble getting guns, but they're not the ones that seem to have a problem getting guns. It's guys like you that have problems getting guns because you don't want to put your money up on the counter. I happen to own a gun. It happens to be a black powder pistol that's part of an outfit that I wear when I dress up, when I have a costume that I wear. I've never loaded this thing, and it would probably take me half an hour if I knew what I was doing to put powder in every chamber and load the thing. But that's the kind of guns that they use back when they passed this amendment. You had to load the blunderbuss,